What does the 2009-2010 basketball season hold for the Villanova Wildcats? Can the team surpass last year's great run to the Final Four and make it to the championship game this year? And why does this program seem to just get better and better every year? We'll ask Coach Jay Wright those questions and more as we take you inside Villanova basketball right now on It's Your Call. Well, it may be fall, but that doesn't mean it's too early to talk about March Madness. As any college basketball fan knows, the road to the Final Four starts right now, as does this edition of It's Your Call. Hi there, everyone. It's great to have you along with us. Now, anyone who's ever watched this show over the last decade or more knows that I am a huge college basketball fan. I absolutely love March Madness, and the Final Four has always been one of my favorite sporting events. And even though we may all have our favorite teams, it's always great to see a local team make good, and that is exactly what Villanova has been doing, particularly in the last 5 years. Take a look at these numbers. In the last 5 years, Nova has recorded 5 straight 20-win seasons. That makes it 126 and 45. Those are pretty impressive numbers. During that time, the Wildcats have appeared in each of the NCAA tournaments where they are 11 and 5. Now, since 2004, the program has been in 4 Sweet 16s, 2 Elite 8s, and finally, last year, into the Final Four. Who can forget how exciting that run was? Even after losing to eventual champion North Carolina, there was a sense that Villanova is a program to be reckoned with, and now all eyes are on the upcoming season. So why is Nova experiencing such a resurgence? Most people will agree it's because of this man, Jay Wright, who's been with the Wildcats now for 8 years, and he has guided the team to those impressive numbers that I mentioned before. He's a 2-time Big East Coach of the Year, and he is my special guest this half hour. Coach, it's great to have you with us.
Great to see you, Lynn.
Congratulations. How psyched are you for the upcoming season after what you accomplished last year?
I'm fired up. I got a good rest after last season, and we've got some really exciting young players. I like our leadership returning. I'm fired up. It's a great thing about coaching because each season's like a new life, you know, and I'm fired up.
Well, of course, when you're coming off a run like Nova had last year, you look at this year and you say, wait a minute, you know, I think we can go all the way, especially if we have the right ingredients. Tell me what ingredients you'll bring to this year's team.
Well, it's talent, number one, Lynn. It always takes talented players, and we've been blessed at Villanova with great players. And although we lost 3 starters in Dante Cunningham, Dwayne Anderson, Shane Clark, and Frank Tweezy, who was a senior, was a great team leader for us. We have the guys coming up. Scotty Reynolds will be a senior. Reggie Redding will be a senior. Corey Fisher, Corey Stokes, Antonio Pena as juniors. They've been kind of waiting for their turn after these guys graduate. So we have experience, and they've got some exciting young guys to kind of compete with them and push them to be even better.
Now, being even better obviously is what every team strives for, but does it also put a certain amount of pressure on those returning players and the new players to live up to what Nova's done in the past 5 seasons?
Definitely. That's the great challenge. Everyone is looking at this team coming up this year to do better than last year's team. But it's really a unique and different group of guys. So our challenge as coaches is we know the fans, everybody, all they care about now is what happens at the end of the season. They want to get to that national championship game. But as a coaching staff and players, we have to start at the beginning. And we have to start all over. And we've got to create a foundation with this year's team of hard work and commitment and playing smart and then build through the year. First, you got to get to the NCAA tournament. Then you have to be successful in the NCAA tournament. So we have a lot of work to do, but we understand the fans just want to see where it ends up.
Well, you know, it's interesting because that's what I said. Anyone who is a basketball fan, and particularly of March Madness, knows that the work does start now. The road to the Final Four, it might say on television it starts at a certain time in March, but you and I both know that it starts in the fall, perhaps even before that, in getting ready for it, not only physically but mentally, and wrapping yourself around the kind of dedication that it's going to take from the players to get where they want to be in March.
Exactly. We took the spring to try to wind down and try to, we went so late into the season, into April, and the guys finished school right at the beginning of May, so we took the spring to kind of enjoy the success of the Final Four and then kind of step away from it. And then the guys came back in the summer, and it was a whole new season. It was interesting. We hired a new assistant coach, Chris Walker, because Pat Chambers, Delaware County guy, our top assistant, became the head coach at Boston University. So Chris Walker came in, and after 3 weeks he said, it's interesting, you wouldn't know that this team went to the Final Four last year because nobody talks about it. Everybody's talking about next year. The guys aren't committed, are committed to getting better. They're not living off of last year. And it started in the summer, and we're in the midst of it right now preparing for this season.
It's interesting that you say that, because I wonder if teams that are somewhat cocky because of a great run end up paying the price when they finally get back on the court, and whether it's a better way to approach the season as, hey, we are only judged by what we're doing now, the past is behind us.
That's the challenge, Lynn, is that these guys are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they have everybody around them talking about the Final Four, talking about winning a national championship this year, and they're young kids, and they want to hear all that stuff and they want to be excited about it, but we have to keep reminding them that we have to do this all over again. And just like we were talking about, it starts in the summer, and then in the fall, in conditioning and individual workouts, and then we've got to get to work when practice starts, and then you got to get through the season, and you got to keep getting better. So it's really a great challenge with young guys to try to get them to separate what everyone's saying in the media and then really focus on what you can control, and that is getting better every day right now.
One thing you can't control is chemistry between players, and one footnote to every program that has consecutive successful seasons is that there always seems to be great chemistry between the players and the coach. How do you establish that?
It's one of my favorite parts of the job. When you get these guys, you really start recruiting these guys when they're in 9th and 10th grade. So the way it is now, you know most of these guys for 2-3 years before you coach them, and then you have them for 3 years, so you've known them for like 5 or 6 years. You really develop a trust and a bond, and the seniors really start that chemistry. By the time guys get to be seniors, juniors and seniors, there's a trust between our coaching staff and them that it's not the coaches and the players, it's all of us together. And then those guys take those freshmen and sophomores and start to teach them off the court the things that we teach them on the court. And it really creates a chemistry, as you said, that the coaches have leadership, the players have ownership. And it's the hardest thing to build. It takes time. And it's something that we take great pride in and put a lot of effort into.
So you essentially right now are looking at young men who are in the 9th or 10th grade for 5 seasons from now?
Yeah, definitely. With the top players now, some of these kids are so physically superior at a young age that they're identified in 9th and 10th grade. And we already have 2 players committed that are starting their senior year. They committed when they were juniors in high school, that they're already coming to Villanova. It's just the way the recruiting process has gone. And what's happened is these kids have gotten so good at a young age that you know who they are. So, the Carolinas and the Dukes and the UCLAs, they know who they are. We know who they are. So the kids have their choices, and they're young, and they just make it, and then they enjoy their high school careers.
What do you think about that? I mean, I know it's a necessary evil, so to speak, but at the same time, as parents, we have to look at this and say these kids are making decisions for the early part of their young adulthood when they're basically in junior high or just barely out of it.
Yeah. I think, like everything in life, there's some positives to it and some negatives. The guys that, if you weren't an athlete and you knew that Harvard was your dream, that's where you wanted to go to school, and in your junior year, Harvard would say to you, we're going to